Welcome to the Copy Closer podcast. I've got Tony Policci on the phone or on the line with us, and we've got a fucking treat for us today. This guy's been in the business for years. Dude, how many years have you been in the business? Not to age you too much.
Well, that's fine. I started writing copy in about 1992, and my little brother Joe Polish and I founded Prana Marketing around 1994.
Dude, and okay, and so for anybody who's not familiar with Prana Marketing, they've got some of the best marketing material out there. They eat your competition alive and shit, you know? Like, I remember listening to Joe Polish and you guys talking about, well, you know what, I should actually probably pre-frame this because I didn't actually buy your product. I was so broke and young, I didn't have it. My martial art instructor, Dwight Woods, bought pretty much anything from Dan Kennedy, Joe, any of you guys. And he, I remember, bought, I think, the XXS sales strategies, Piranha Marketing. I mean, he bought everything. And so I absorbed it. And I remember, were you the brother then that was closing deals on the phone as well back in the day? Because I remember you were that person. I remember listening to that because I was such a shy kid. When I first heard this, I'm like, I couldn't even imagine being the brother. I'd rather be the person writing the words. Like, that's insane. So, dude, let's talk, for some of the folks who may not know you, what were you doing, I guess, before you got into copywriting? And then what started you getting into marketing and copywriting in the first place?
Well, does doing drugs qualify as a career path?
It's a very common career path, I think, in the marketing world.
So, Joe and I both have a history. I mean, if anybody follows Joe and Genius Network, they know that his passion project is, Artists for Addicts. But really, what I was doing when I started studying marketing was I'd gotten clean. I'd been clean a couple years, maybe 3 years, 89, 91. And so Joe had this carpet cleaning business, and I was working with him and going to school. I wanted to be a psychiatrist. So he handed me a copy of this newsletter and said, "Read this shit, man." And I read it and I said, "Wow, that is awesome." I said, "Where did you get this?" It was this cheap looking thing, 8 pages, white paper, black print. And he says, "It's from this dude named Gary Halbert out in Florida." And I said, "That's awesome. Like I can use some of this stuff." And he said, "Yeah, it's $197 a year. It comes out once a month." And I about shit. I was like, I shouldn't be cussing. I was like,
you can cuss.
$197 like for 12 issues. That's insane. So, that's where my mind was. But now also when I was going to school to get my degree in psychology, but I was also studying acting. And so what I started doing was studying marketing, promote myself as an actor. And eventually, so what I do is I'd go out, I was delivering pizzas too, going to college and cleaning carpets with my brother. And I wound up actually getting an HBO movie, a few other things because I marketed to casting directors, writing, one-page sales letters. And I got a professional acting contract out in Louisville, Kentucky for a year. And this was just about the time when Joe was, he hired Dan Kennedy's assistant at the time, was a girl named Lucinda Burke. And this is like 1993, maybe 1994. And because he was, studying all this marketing and putting stuff together, and it was working. And she helped Joe write the original 99 Strategies manual that launched Prana Marketing. But I went away and, worked in professional theater for a year. So,
dude, that's fucking insane. I think acting, it's a sales job in itself. I mean, most people have to sit in these long ass lines for hours just to hope they can get an audition. And then maybe I have friends who are actors. So this is what I've heard almost horror stories. And to me, I'm like, you guys are like marketers almost, but they weren't the best marketers because they would stand in line for like hours. And then right before they would get cut. But it sounds like, did you write a direct mail letter or something?
I wrote sales letters to casting directors.
That's what it was.
To so there are scouts for theaters. There's casting agents and there's directors who are looking to cast their season. And what wound up happening for me was one of these guys got a hold of my professor actually showed him a letter, and they came out to Arizona and auditioned me. And, I got the gigs for a year of professional theater. So it was cool. You know, you still have to stand in line for all that stuff. But
yeah, but you know what? You pre-qualified them. You did a lot of. I mean, I'm talking about. I have friends who literally, well, it's not in the newspaper, I guess, anymore. But they would be like on Craigslist and shit, and they'll be like, "Oh, that would be their marketing." You actually did like a more aggressive approach, I guess you would say. You actually went after them. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's totally different.
Yeah, because you have to set yourself apart. You know, the casting director, I forget her name. She was out here in Scottsdale. The one that got me the HBO movie and a few commercials. I sent her this letter. I did some research, you know, as a copywriter, that's our most important piece, right? I did some research and I was like, you know, are there any examples at this time? There was no freaking going online and doing research. I was in the library, you know, looking at, you know, how to make it as an actor, how to succeed. And I found this awesome book that had an example of a letter that this guy had written, and it talked about the difference between like your average white bread toast and your wheat bread actor. And I was like, that's a cool concept. So I modified that and I sent it to her, and she was so impressed by this letter. She actually called me and she said, you know, I got your letter and no one's ever sent me anything that has been quite as clever. So I would like you to come in and audition for me. And you know, I came in and I did a cold audition, just a reading, so she could get a look at me and see what, and
dude, that's fucking amazing. That blows me away. I mean, I'm thinking of like when I did my direct mail letters to try and get business owners to call us so we could try and close them on a website. You did the same thing, but for acting. I mean, were you an entrepreneur before this? Because it seems like you took an entrepreneur route into your acting. You know what I mean? Like,
you know, I think I was always entrepreneurial minded. When I had my first job when I was, after I graduated high school, one of the first jobs I had was working at a copy center. You know, I rebuilt copiers, and I was like all about Herbalife at the time. So, you know, what I was doing was I was repairing these copiers and then bringing in my own paper and like printing like chain letters and, you know, flyers and stuff, trying to promote this stuff. I never really made any money with Herbalife all those years ago, but yeah, I always had that mindset. Now, I told you earlier that, you know, part of my history is addiction. And so, yeah, I was entrepreneurial, you know, in that area. And,
took me a second to get it. I'm like, where's he going with this?
That actually, you know, almost landed me in prison for my entire life. But I was fortunate and blessed that didn't happen. It was just before the laws changed here in Arizona. So, but yeah, you know, I always had this. Our father was an entrepreneur. My dad, you know, maybe not quite the same definition of an entrepreneur now. You know, he worked for himself. He was a locksmith, but the entrepreneur part of it was. What he would do is he would go into different cities. He would set up shop. He would build a reputation. He would create demand, and then he would sell it to another locksmith. You know, it's like, here's the business. I've got the clientele. Here's what it's worth. You know,
that's really smart.
Yeah, it was smart. So I think Joe and I both saw that modeled in our father. You know, that he was not punching the clock for somebody else.
Right.
And, that always was attractive to me as well.
Did you ever work for your father?
No. By the time that I worked with my dad, and I wish I would have paid more attention, you know, I think there's a lot of us who look back at what our parents did and we had absolutely no interest in that. And then looking back, I think, God, I was a dumbass. You know, I would have loved to know how to open anything. I mean, I can still pick locks and you know, before the cars got really advanced, I was the guy to turn to whenever you needed your car if you had your keys locked in it, because I paid attention to my dad, but no, I never worked for him.
That was another side hustle, huh? That was one of those other illegal ventures. You need to get into a car, you know, call Tony Stark.
Right, yeah.
Which actually is a story in itself. So your name, you've got a really cool name, but it's actually Tony Stark, and you're the real Tony Stark in the flesh. I'd love to hear if you could just tell that story again. That would be so awesome.
Sure. Well, you know, first of all, another thing about names with me is people wonder, you know, well, is Joe Polish really your brother? Why is your last name Policci? And the story behind that is, so when we were growing up, we lived back east, back in Pennsylvania. That's where most of our family is. And, I had friends that were Polish and Russian and, all kinds of ethnicities. I come out west and they start calling me, Polish sausage, Polak, this and that. And I'm like, you're all a bunch of ignorant bigots, like a Polish name is like Zabatowski, Kowalski, blah, blah, blah. And so one day I'm visiting with my aunt and they lived in Vegas. And she said, your name's not really Polish. I said, what? She goes, oh no, your grandfather, when he came over from Sicily, his name was Policci. And he changed it because he killed one of the mob guys in a bar fight. And I said, is that real? She goes, well, that's the story. I don't know. So from that moment, when I was 14 years old, I committed that when I was old enough, I was going to change my damn name back. So when I turned 18, I changed my name to Policci. I was all about the Italian thing, especially with my previous career. And so, it's like people didn't necessarily know that Joe and I were brothers unless we wanted them to. And it was kind of cool because there were times when, I needed to do some undercover work at an event or something. And, people didn't know right away that I was associated. Now, the Stark thing came in, like in 2008, the first Iron Man movie came out, and I actually was wearing my beard kind of like that. So the kids at church and my boys' friends started calling me Tony Stark, Iron Man, because I kind of looked like Robert Downey Jr. And so it stuck. Well, a few years ago, I got divorced in 2015, and I started dating this woman, and lo and behold, her name's Donna Stark. So I come home from my first date, and I tell my boys, I'm like, guys, guess what? I went out with a woman named Donna Stark. And my son was like, Dad, oh shit, like, if you get married to her, will you really be Tony Stark? And I was like, well, let's not jump the gun here, but 2 years ago we got married and I decided why not? So I added that. So yeah, my name is really Tony Stark Policci, and it's a real thing.
Oh God, I fucking love it, dude.
Yeah,
I fucking love it.
I even got like Tony Stark glasses here somewhere. Here we go.
Yeah, there we go, dude. I love it. So for the people who are only listening and can't see this, he just put on some great glasses. He looks just like Tony Stark. Dude, yeah. I love this because your history is so cool. I mean, talking about like copywriting, copywriters, the story is so important in copywriting. Your natural story could just sell a course by itself because you had a grandfather, was it, or great grandfather that, possibly killed off some mafia guy and had to change his name. And
yeah.
You've got a fucking amazing story. You were like set up for this stuff. It's amazing. So, okay. So you were doing some stuff with your brother. You're cleaning carpets. You were doing some acting and whatnot. And then what happened? What was kind of like that next transition?
The catalyst that got me into working full-time with my brother was after I finished my career or my year of contract in Louisville, Kentucky, I was headed towards LA. But my wife at the time, she had kids from a previous marriage, and we found out that they were out here in Arizona with, they were in Arizona with her ex's first wife, but he was in Florida with wife number 3. And she said, can we get custody of my kids? And I'm like, yeah, sure. How long could it take? A few weeks. Boy, was I stupid. So, we started this process, and the entire nest egg that I had to go out to LA started getting eaten up by legal fees. Now, my dad in the process was like, you really need to go down and help your brother. He's a mess down there. And I'm like, well, what the hell is he doing? Now, I knew that he had some course together because he asked me to get on a mailing list because he had a guy that was knocking him off and stealing his stuff. And so, I was reading these sales letters and everything else, but I was focused on my acting, right? I'd just done like 3 world premieres of plays. I was focused. But I went down there and are you familiar with the Colby profile?
I've heard of it, but that's a test, correct?
Yeah. So, it's got 4 different criteria for what you're good at. And, most of us entrepreneurs, copywriters, we're innovators. We're high quick starts. Well, Joe is like a 9 quick start and I'm an 8. But there's other things like implementer, fact finder, follow through. And so I go into his office and it's like a freaking mess in there. Literally, there's tapes everywhere. There's just shit everywhere. And, Eunice, was his friend from high school. She was working for him at the time, and they were in these cool little train cabooses over there in downtown Tempe. That was the office. And so I started organizing stuff. I tried, because at this time he was doing his own fulfillment. He's putting together courses. He had his own shrink wrap machine.
Dude, that's a fucking hassle. I'm doing that with necklaces, and I'm fucking going crazy.
Yeah. So I started organizing things, but while I'm doing it, I'm starting to listen to stuff, listening to tapes, blah, blah, blah. And what really flipped the switch for me was Joe took us, Eunice and I, we both went, and I don't know if this was his first one, but we went to a Dan Kennedy super conference. And I think day 2 in there, it was like somebody pulled a sheet off my head and I saw the light for the first time. It was like, oh, I realized, you know what, man? If you understand marketing and copywriting, you can own the world. You can write your own ticket. You don't need to worry about, you can make anything happen, right? You got a problem? One sales letter. It's and from that moment forward, there was no stopping me. I just devoured everything I could get. Jay Abraham stuff, Ted Nicholas, Gary Halbert. And, I learned to write copy from Dan. Joe and I would meet with him once a month. We'd have lunch with the guy. From Gary. Gary came out and hung out with us for a week. And then I spent 3 months working with him over the phone. Ted Nicholas came out here and visited me. I went out with him and his wife. What's her name? I'm going to screw it up. Melanie, but he's a champion, fantastic guy. Joe Sugarman, these were the guys that I had the opportunity to learn from and study. And
that's the who's who. That's the Hall of Fame of marketing right there.
Yeah. And Brian Keith Foils, you remember Brian Keith Foils? Brian?
I don't.
Okay, so Brian has kind of faded into the background because he's had some health issues and stuff, but Brian was one of the best copywriters and the nicest guy in the world. And in fact, he's the guy that got me my first professional gig outside of Piranha for Entrepreneur Magazine. And, it was great. So I was going nuts, and we were going to all these seminars. Jeff Paul, who you may not remember.
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Okay.
JDK.
Yep. JDK. Yeah. So I learned all of this stuff, and I was just, I had a voracious appetite for this. And we grew Piranha. When I decided that, first of all, I didn't really decide that I was going to do Piranha. It was circumstances, right? All my money was gone. 2 years had passed with this legal thing, and I'm still in Arizona. And now I've transitioned into being at the office every day, and I'm digging this shit. So I just kind of fell into it. It wasn't this is a smart decision. I'm going to get into marketing.
When you fell into it, you actually it wasn't damn, I got to do this shit.
Oh man, I loved it. I was sick with it.
What do you think is the most addicting? I know for me, it's seeing those results come in or lack of. What do you think got you all excited?
Well, here's what I think, Carlos. I call myself a method marketer because as an actor, I studied method acting. Now, method acting is where you actually, it's you become the role that you're portraying. And one of the things that I love the most about acting, especially live theater, is I can control that audience based on what I say and what I do and how I move. It's the very same with copywriting, because what is the ultimate key behind selling anything? It's the tapping into the emotions, right? And so I think the thing that I liked the most about it was that it was a way for me to evoke emotions from people, but it was more than just entertaining them. This was a method of actually getting them emotionally charged up to such a state that they would actually give me money, that they would actually buy stuff from me. And the big benefit is, you can do a play, and maybe there's plays or movies or something that impacted your life have left a lasting memory. But when you can sell somebody something that helps them change their life for the better, then, it's like a win-win. I mean, it was so exciting for me. I'd get on the phone with these carpet cleaners. That was, Joe and I, we eventually went into multiple different service industries with the course. We tweaked it for HVAC and pest control and a few others, printing. But
right.
You get on the phone with these guys. Now, most of these guys are technicians, right? You've probably heard of the E-Myth books if you haven't read them. But, they're technicians. They started working for somebody else, and then they got upset one day and said, screw this guy, I'm going to start my own business. And, they think that because they know how to do the technical stuff that they can become a business owner and run a business. Well, it's a far cry between having the skill to clean a carpet and be successful. And I get on the phone with these guys and be like, $499 for a book, that's a lot of money. And I'd be like, how much do you charge to clean a carpet? How long does it take you to do that? You know what? I can show you how to get 3 times the amount of money for that. Now, how much is that worth to you? Like, you can pay for this course in 1 day. 1 day. What's that worth to you? And I'd get to watch these people change their lives. And I felt like I had a hand in that, and it was really cool.
Well, I think when the fact that you were able to talk to these people on the phone had to have gotten you better at copy as well. I mean, was that something that just kind of happened, or was that like conscious, like, hey, let me talk to our customers and figure out how I can write copy better? Or was it just kind of like it happened, you were the person on the phone, or what?
Yeah,
that's a powerful lesson right there.
I think I've skipped over the whole copywriting piece because I told you about the marketing, but the copy really started because when I came in and decided to work in Piranha full time with Joe, I basically stayed in there and ran the office with Eunice. I interfaced with all the clients, and Joe went out and built relationships, which if you follow him at all, he's like the master connector, right?
Yeah.
So Joe would go out and build these relationships, and I would stay there and I would deal with the clients. I did over 3,000 critiques of ads, sales letters, yellow page ads, free reports. I was doing dozens of them a day. And, it's like they talk about 10,000 hours for mastery. As I'm going over this stuff over and over and over again, I started to identify patterns. What is the headline? What's the pre-headline? What is the hook? What are the messages here? And that is how I developed my copywriting. I got a funny story about copywriting. The first sales letter that I wrote was only 2 pages long. I gave it to Joe, and I was proud, man. I was like, this is some good stuff right here. And when he gave it back to me the next day, it looked like it had been marked up by a psychopathic English teacher with a red pen obsession, and it had really loving, encouraging things on it, like, what the fuck is this? And, who are you talking to? Dead people? It's like, I was asleep by paragraph 2, and here I thought I did something good, but it was a really great lesson in having to unlearn all the things that we learn in English class in order to write conversationally and write at the level which impacts people. And then once you get that, then you can go back in and worry about, whether or not you got a dangling participle, which in most cases doesn't matter for us. But that's how I started writing copy. It was doing all the critiques and working with the clients. And then I started on writing things for our newsletters and our sales promotions. And I actually, like, one of my favorite stories is I beat Dan Kennedy's control for our newsletter subscription. Yep.
Wow.
And I did it with a 1-page flyer because we had this 8-page sales letter that we were using. And I thought, this is too much of a pain in the ass. And most of our printing was done by a guy in Chicago. So anytime we needed something printed, he'd print it, ship it out to us. But sometimes there was a week, delay or 2 weeks getting our stuff. And I was like, I got to send these renewal notices out, every week. So I just decided to come up with something myself. It was a 1-page flyer. And the hook was, if you renew now, you're going to save yourself money. If you wait till next month, it's going to cost you more. And I started 90 days out. So every month it was going to go up. And man, that thing just converted like crazy. You know, it was like everybody wanted to save money. So,
Dude, that's fucking smart. That's
yeah.
fucking smart. You know, you talked a little bit off camera before we get started about how marketing has changed, I guess, today, and how things have kind of transitioned a little bit. Could you talk a little bit about what you guys did in the beginning when you were starting with Joe to initially get those clients? Were you doing like space ads to a phone call, or say space ads to get a report with a follow-up, or just kind of walk through that process? Because I think it would be cool for a lot of copywriters who are only familiar with the internet to see what people actually did before the fucking internet, you know,
Yeah.
and how we can apply it now.
And that's true. That when I learned, I already told you that I studied with some of these great guys, but I also read all the great books, Ogilvy, Schwartz, Caples. You couldn't just go online and Google, best converting headlines in history. Like, it was work to study this shit, and it cost coin. I mean, going to these seminars to learn from Halbert and Kennedy, it wasn't cheap. $2,400 back in, 1995 it was a lot of money.
A lot of money.
And there was no email marketing, of course. Everything was direct mail, space advertising, two-step stuff. So we would run, we started out with eighth page ads, quarter page ads, half page ads, then we go to full page ads, then we go to double trucks, which are 2 pages. And this was like, 8-point font, just crammed in there. Which led them to the call to action was to call a recorded line and request a free report. The free report was the sales letter, and there would be 3 or 4. In some cases, we had up to 6 steps where we would mail them, and those would lead to they could order 3 ways. They could mail it in, they could call, or they could fax. Do you remember those things?
Barely.
Yeah, I still got one back here.
They have an app for that now.
I know. They got an app for that.
It's funny. I had to fax something and I was like, I don't even have a fax machine. I don't even know how to fax shit. And then I was like, how do I I was Googling, and then I downloaded an app. I'm like, oh, I just have to take a picture and text message to them basically nowadays. I'm like,
yeah,
how shit has changed.
Yeah. But that's it was really like for us trying to figure out marketing. We went to something called the SRDS, the Standard Rates and Data, books in the library. That was the big thing Dan Kennedy used to tout. It was like, you want to find a hot market, that's where you got to go do your research. And bro, that was like some gut-wrenching stuff. I'm like spending hours poring over these big books that were just, it's like reading. Now I know you write financial copy, don't you?
I do, yeah.
Okay. So, for me, like reading a prospectus is about as fun as getting my, what can I say that's not too crass?
Getting fucking dental surgery.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, we'll go with that. But that's what it was like for me. I don't like that crap. Like I don't want to work on projects unless I'm really interested in them because I get distracted too easily. So, but those are the kinds of things that we had to do, and we had to do a lot of testing, and there was also a lot of failure. You couldn't do things like quick tests. You can go on Facebook now or AdWords, and you can find out if something works pretty quickly. You can even do it for free by, checking how people respond to your posts. Well, it wasn't so easy. We'd have to do reasonable tests with direct mail, and that got expensive. I remember one time there was a guy named Brad Richdale.
Oh, I've heard of Brad. I don't know Brad, but I've heard of Brad.
I don't know what happened to him. I think we're friends on Facebook, but we did a joint venture with him. And Dan Kennedy wrote our sales letter. I think I wrote the lift letter. And it was like 30-something pages with a lift, with the testimonial booklet. Our cost to mail it was probably around $5 plus the printing. We sent out a 1,000-piece test.
Wow.
Got 0 response. 0. That's a bad day at the office.
Oh, that is a bad day at the office.
In direct mail when you're, spending
$7,000 for a test.
$7,000 plus, the fee for Dan to write the letter.
Now I'm curious, would he revise it at that point, or would he be like,
no.
Sorry, guys.
No, he's like, there's no life, there's no point.
Right. Interesting. So you pay the one-time shot or whatever it is, and then if it doesn't work, that sucks.
Well, in that case,
I'm curious. This is interesting.
yeah, in that case, we did a one-time shot
Gotcha.
because we could not understand what the problem was. Now, back in the day, like we didn't even really know whether or not the mail was delivered. You know, we don't know. I don't think we got a return mail back when direct mail is called Nixies. We call them Nixies, right? We didn't get any Nixies back. So we were like, did the post office deliver the mail? Did they throw it in the dumpster? We don't know. So, you know, you don't throw good money after bad. There has to be some life there. It's a lot easier in the digital world to send follow-ups if you don't really get any response and find out if maybe people just, you hit them at the wrong time. Dan Kennedy always said the right message to the right market at the right moment. And, you know, those three, when you have all three of those things in place, then, you know, it's a slam dunk. But the old advertising agency thing is, you know, you run an ad and you don't get any response. And you call them and say, I'm not getting any response. And they say, well, you just got to keep running it because, you know, people need to like see it multiple times before they trust you. What a bunch of shit. Yeah. Like, you know, direct response is designed to do what? Get a direct response. It's not like I'm going to set this over here. And when they mail me 4 more of these, then I'm going to think, yeah, they're credible and I'll call them. No. So, you know, there were cases, if there was no life to something, unless we could identify that we had done something completely wrong, if it didn't work, we abandoned it and moved on to something else.
Well, that's a big credit to you guys, I think, because even in today's online world, I think that principle still exists. It's just we kind of keep trying to beat it to death, trying to make it work sometimes. And so I've seen that as kind of as well in the online space where, just like I was saying, like something doesn't work and it's like, it's probably not going to work, but people just keep on trying and they're trying to do all this stuff. It sounds like you guys were quick to cut your losses, which says a lot. I mean, obviously you have some emotional stuff where you're like, damn it, it's got to work. But hey, it didn't win. You know, so then what would you do? What would your process be? Like just kind of come up with a new hook, figure out what the offer is, I guess, you know, and retest again or something?
Well, in situations where we didn't abandon the project, we would go in and do some more research. We'd find out, and this is still something that I do today, and you probably do this with your clients. You know, how are you going to really understand your market? You go ask them questions, right? You survey them. And so what we would do in situations where we got a low response or things didn't work the way that we thought it would, we'd go out to, you know, 12, 100 people, depending on the size of the audience, and say, hey, so, you know, we sent you this letter. We'd really appreciate your feedback, you know, your input on what you thought of it. Or we could be very direct and say, so, you know, you didn't buy this, John. What we thought that this would be something that you would absolutely love, but you chose not to buy it. Can you tell me why? And then we might find out, oh, well, you know, this thing's overlooking like the one pain point that the majority of this audience really has. We missed this, or the positioning was wrong, or the price point was wrong, or they were skeptical, you know? And so that was the number one thing, is to go in and, you know, try and identify what the stopping point was.
Did you call these folks up?
I did,
I assume
yeah.
That's how you would have to do it back then, right? You can't just email them and shit.
Yep.
Dude, that's so awesome. I've said that before. I do that with my necklace buyers. It's so funny because I've had people give me some shit about it. Like, dude, they're fucking like $7 customers. What are you calling them for? I'm like, because if I know how to sell them better, I can just sell them better, right? So I've called like 100-something of our buyers who bought our necklace. And I'm like, hey, so have you gotten the necklace? Do you like it? Would you be interested in giving it to more people? Why? Why not? I'm just trying to like diagnose like the entire situation, figure out what the heck is going on in their head. And then the other thing we did is we stole this from Kevin Trudeau, and I'd love to hear if you guys did this as well. Kevin. And he said he would call everybody who would try to purchase, or he didn't, I guess his assistant did, but they would call everybody who would try to purchase, but the card was declined. And, you know, it just didn't, there weren't enough funds on the card or whatever. And he would have, you know, he would compile a big, and I've done this, and now, and it's fucking gold. It's like my standard shit now. I'm just the one making the calls. I need an assistant. But he would compile a list of all the people who have failed card transactions and say, okay, there's like, you know, $100,000 or $1 million in possible money here. Let's go ahead and call them all up. And he would say, you know, hey, Tony, this is Carlos from the Copywriting Domination Method.com. I saw you tried ordering our product or whatever it was, but, we had so many people visit the website that some people said that you couldn't order. And I just wanted to know, were you able to order the product? Oh, no, we weren't able to order the product. Okay, well, did you want to go ahead and try another card to make sure we could get that out to you? And doing shit like that, like I don't have a number on it. I haven't actually done the smart thing and counted my sales and shit, but I'm calling people up that say, hey, insufficient funds on the credit card. And I just call them up and say, hey, would you like to just switch to another card? And people are doing it. Did you guys ever do that? It's like, that was a long ass question. Sorry.
No, absolutely. We had lots of people that credit cards declined. And, that was part of our follow-up program. The first course of action was always a personal phone call. And then it was a direct mail combination with a phone call.
Do you think that's something, because nobody does phone calls anymore? Like a handful of quote unquote gurus may do it, but for the most part, they email your ass to death. They'll text you to death, but no one picks up the phone anymore and calls. Like do you think that's something that's maybe outdated and we don't have to anymore? Or do you think there's still value in that?
No, I think there's absolutely value in that. Now, a lot of people don't answer their phones, but it definitely depends on the market that you're going after. If you're promoting something to baby boomers, people like me, I'm on the very tail end of that. But people that are, 65 and older, they still answer their phones. They actually like to talk to people. And, you can use the new technology to get to the old technology. Like, we're talking here now, but we did all this scheduling online, right? Through calendars and everything else. I mean, you can still do that. But getting somebody on the phone, even like one of the things I do with one of my clients now is we do a lot of voice broadcasting.
Oh, interesting. So how does that work?
So a voice broadcast, there's two different ways that we send out messages. We record two messages. One goes to a live answer, one goes to an answering machine. And the system is somehow able to tell which is which. And there'll be a different message based on, whether
what picks up
a live answer. Yeah. And, it's very inexpensive to do it. It's probably around, maybe 7 to 13 cents a call.
That's fucking nothing.
Yeah, it's nothing. And of course you have to have permission to do it because, the regulators are always trying to stop us marketers from making money.
Does that just mean permission, like they bought something from us once or something? Is that permission enough?
Yes. You have to have an existing relationship with them. They have to have given you your number. The do not call list put a big damper on what you can do. But if you have a customer database or they've inquired from you and they've given you their phone number, then you can do it. Now, they may complain, somebody may complain, and you can typically fend that off unless you're, like a spammer with it. Right. But it's really cool because, you start the message like, oh, hey, gosh, it's Lou. I was hoping I could catch you because I really wanted to invite you to come out to my seminar. I'm doing 3 days in Atlanta this time, and I was looking at my records and you've never been. And I hope you haven't given up your dream of making it in real estate. And, I'm sorry I missed you, but if you just call Dennis, let me give you the number. Hold on. Okay. 888. Make it sound like
super personal,
and it's amazing the kind of response that you get.
I fucking think that's so gold. Do you know who Peter Popoff is?
Yeah.
Okay, so Peter Popoff, I just got his voice broadcast now because I'm on his direct mail list. I study his direct mail and stuff. And he just did something where he sent a voice broadcasting, just like kind of similar to what you're talking about. And at the end, his hook was like, I'm sending you a letter in the mail with my private phone number, be on the lookout for it and all this stuff. And I thought it was so genius. I was like, gosh, that seems so straightforward and simple. But what he's doing is making sure I open his direct mail package by sending out a voice broadcast. And now that I know how cheap it is, I can see why he's doing it. I mean, I think he pays a couple bucks just to mail his packages to me because I see the stamp. And so for 15 cents, that's not too bad, or 12 cents for a voicemail thing. That's sick.
Absolutely. It's preemptive prepping. And I've done that too. If you're going to spend a lot of money on a direct mail piece, you want to make sure that thing winds up in the A pile, you know? And typically, like what I've done in the past to connect those two things is I'll say, listen, I'm sending you a very important letter. It's going to come out in a pink envelope, and it's going to have a Mickey Mouse stamp on it. I don't want you to miss this because there's something very valuable in there for you. And, you know, and I'll check back with you in a week or so to make sure you got it. So, you know, when this thing comes, it's like in there, like, oh, here's that thing. Now they may get into the envelope and decide this sucks, but at least they're into it. And if you don't get them inside, you got nothing, right?
Absolutely.
It's like getting a click on your Facebook ad and they go to the landing page and they don't watch the damn video. It's like, so what?
Right.
You know, you didn't get them inside the envelope. So
Right. Dude, this is fucking gold. I'm loving everything so far. This is exactly what I was hoping for. I'm like a little kid here. I'm like, this is fucking exciting. So, okay. So I just want to get back to your story a little bit. So you were doing stuff with your brother. You were basically running, it sounds like the office essentially, right? And then what happened? I mean, are you doing freelancing stuff as well? Or you like, because I know you do other stuff now. Did you guys transition to doing something else? Like what was the next step for you?
Well, in 2000, what we were doing was Joe wanted to move more towards consulting. He had started his first, I think at the time it was like a $10,000 a year platinum group, and it was all carpet cleaners. And so his vision at the time was to do that. And we had somebody else that we were going to turn Piranha Marketing over to. So the whole model of the business was going to change. I had situations going on in my personal life with my ex-wife. She had some very serious issues that were really interfering with the company. And I needed, well, not with the company, but me being away 50, 70 hours a week was creating chaos at home because I had two stepsons and two kids of my own. And my wife was just not in any shape to take care of it. So once we decided to move this Piranha's office from Arizona to Washington and let one of Joe's star clients take over, I transitioned out. I was like, I want to work from home and we'll do, you know, the platinum stuff together, blah, blah, blah. And then my wife wound up going to prison for like 2.5 years. And I had two babies, you know, a 3-month-old and an 18-month-old. And my life was just turned upside down. So I had to be there with them, and I started writing copy. You know, I just reached out to the people that I knew, and I was like, here's the deal. You guys need anything written? And that's how I started. And I picked up my first big client was a guy named Jude LaCour. And I wrote a sales letter for him for a product called Ultimate Vitality. It was a male supplement, you know, that made you rock and ready. And I wrote a free report that had some kind of a killer headline. I wish I could remember it. Something like, learn the secrets to restore the virility you had as a 14-year-old, even at 65 and above, something like that. I don't know, but that sales letter was was making about $245,000 a month for him.
Jesus.
And that was, you know, it was online. It was new internet. This was like 2001, maybe.
All right. So he was probably just sending some Google ads right to the sales page or some shit.
Yeah.
Fucking kill that. Damn, I wish I was in it back then. I would have been super rich then. Fuck.
I know, right? Yeah.
That's what everybody says, I guess.
Gold rush.
Yeah, that was a gold rush.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so, you know, as I just continued to do that. And then, you know, Joe moved in a different direction. The whole thing didn't work out with turning the office. I mean, that lady almost destroyed his company.
Wow.
I can't really I probably shouldn't disclose what happened, but
of course, yeah, I get it.
It was ugly. And, you know, a couple years later, my business, when my ex finally got released, my business was going so good. I was just loving it. You know, I was like, I'm doing my own thing now. And I think I actually founded my company in 2002, Absolutely Brilliant Concepts. So, and I've been
and so you've been writing, Yeah. So have you been freelancing then since 2002?
Yep. Since
Oh, wow.
2000, more like October 2000 is really when I started, but I founded my company in 2002.
Yes, dude. So you've been freelancing for nearly 20 years.
Yep.
That's fucking sick. What are some things you think that a freelancer should be paying attention to a little bit more?
Number one, think about your future. Don't sell yourself too short. I've always been a very heart-centered entrepreneur. I shouldn't say entrepreneur, a heart-centered person. Just really compassionate, and so there were many times when I just gave my stuff away. I could have asked for royalties. I should have asked for royalties. I didn't ask for royalties. I undervalued what I was doing. I didn't think I was worth. It's like, God, that's an awful lot of money to be charging somebody for that. So I think the number one thing that you need to do as a freelancer, well, let me just give you a list of what I think. Number one, think about this from a long-term perspective. Look at where you want to be when you get to be 55, 65, and then work your way backwards from what do you need to do, okay? Because I promise you one thing, Carlos, you at 32 are not going to want to be doing the same kind of stuff that you're doing at 55. You're going to want to scale up. But if you don't have a vision for what you need to do to change that, everybody talks about where you want to be in 10 years. Where do you see yourself in 10 years? All I did for the first 10 was, what's the next job? So, think about the future. Second is you have to have a marketing machine. No matter what you do, whether you're a freelance designer, if you do video, if you're a copywriter, and I know copywriters are the ones watching this, you have to have a marketing machine, okay? Because the biggest problem for freelancers is what? Feast or famine, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like, and I know you've experienced that because I've heard some of
Absolutely.
your stories, read some of your posts and things. And it's like, you may be killing it for 3 months straight, and then that project dies. Now, one of the downsides of being a great copywriter is that we often work ourselves out of a position because we'll create something for a client and it just works and works and works. And you're like, you need me to tweak it? No, it's killing it. Got anything else? No, we're busier than hell. We can't handle anything else. And then I'm like, well, no, shit, now what? Right? So you got to have your marketing machine in place and create a way to continually fill that funnel with new prospects. The third thing is pay attention to what you do with your money. Okay. It's really easy when you're knocking down $10,000 jobs, 2-3 of those come in 1 week. And it just feels like you got all the money in the world, right? So nothing's saved, nothing's stocked away. You're going out and buying some new clothes. You're going on a great trip, things like that. But you have to watch your money, because I learned one of the most important things I learned was from Jeff Paul. He said, Tony, be kind to all the people you meet on the way up, because they're the same ones you're going to meet on the way down. And as you probably know, most successful people, everything falls apart at least once in their career.
Oh,
right?
100%.
Yeah. And, there were times when I thought, man, I get the golden ticket here. This thing's going to rock. And it was rocking. And I just thought, well, this is going to keep rocking. The guy's promising me this. We got this contract. And then everything falls apart and I can't do anything about it. And then suddenly my money pipeline, the utility company comes and shuts my supply off. It's like, where's my money coming from? Now what am I going to do? I got to go find a new client. I got to scramble. Well, I haven't been doing any marketing. I got to start fresh. Who am I going to go after? What do I do? So pay attention to what you do with your money. Save, invest. You've got to think, none of us is promised a tomorrow, right? It's true. So I plan for the worst, but I hope for the best. And, I think that it's really important that everybody stocks away enough to keep yourself solvent for 3 to 6 months, at least, if something happens. Because, things happen. We get sick. We have injuries. One of my biggest fears always as a copywriter was, what happens if I get hurt? If I lose my sight? If my hands get broken? Like, how the hell am I going to work? And this was before, we had voice text. I always thought about that. I even had liability insurance at one point for, or disability insurance in case something happened. You know,
Wow.
'cause it's hard to replace, you know, $15,000, $20,000 a month income if you can't work.
Yeah.
So, what else?
Well, dude, it's funny you say that because I've recently been having these conversations with Tiffany. I mean, it's crazy. I'm happy you're saying this because it kind of reconfirms some things that like I'm kind of feeling inside and whatnot. But I don't know. I'm kind of just taking my best shot in the dark, right? I think this is the right path. Let's try it out, right? But it's you know, recently, like really, probably at the beginning of this year, I started thinking, I'm like, you know, I've done decently, like as just a gunslinger sort of freelance copywriter, but I haven't built any assets. I just have to keep chasing more money for the rest of my life. Is that what I want to do? And I kept thinking about that and hearing you say it. I love this because it's like I get to learn from somebody else who's been in these and further ahead than me, and I can kind of learn from your experience. So I know anybody who's listening to this as a copywriter, you should be paying attention and writing notes, because the first thing that, or actually, dude, you know, everything you said I've been thinking about, so it's good. But I totally relate to kind of having all that marketing money or all that, you know, all that stuff run dry. I remember when I first got my first $10,000 a month client, I thought I was the richest kid in the world because I had gone from food stamps to 10K a month with one
Right.
client. And I
Yeah.
was like, I'm fucking rich, bitch. Like,
Yeah.
that's what's up.
And you were, yeah, it was.
Well,
You
yeah,
were.
it felt like I was, and I'm in Arizona, so it's like it's super cheap here. So 10 grand a month here is like, it's way cheaper than 10 grand a month in Miami, that's for sure.
Right.
So anyway, so I was doing that, and I wasn't really saving any cash. I wasn't doing anything. And then after 10, 11 months, just under a year, we stopped working together. And I was like, oh, fuck,
No
I
way.
haven't marketed myself. I was just kind of living life like as if this was going to go on forever. It's been, you know, 5 months go by, 6 months go by. So I'm like, this is, you know, I'm just a new life now, you know? And then everything dried up. I had no leads, no sale. I stopped marketing myself on Facebook organically like I was doing before. And, you know, I wasn't doing anything. And that was the first time it hit me. I had gone from making, you know, 100 grand a year with just one client to making $0, zero prospects. And nobody even remembered who I was because I just stopped marketing myself. And so because of that moment, and that person eventually turned into a business partner of mine later on. So he actually taught me a great lesson by not working with me anymore. And, but yeah, dude, ever since then, I know that's actually part of the reason I have a podcast. The reason we started this podcast secretly for everybody who's listening is because we don't need the work now. We don't actually need copywriting money. We're doing okay. We're selling our own offers in totally unrelated niche markets, which is something I've always wanted to do. So I wouldn't have to be dependent on copywriting. But I didn't want to make the same mistake and say, I've got these cool offers crushing it, so now I'm going to be rich and all this stuff. You know what? Let me keep marketing myself as a marketer and a copywriter now that I don't have to, because then God forbid something happens, I've still kind of built that reputation up. So hearing you say those three things about you've got to work yourself back. I mean, think of what your long-term goal is, work yourself back. Having a marketing machine where you're pumping leads in constantly, you can still have that. Don't ever let that run dry. And then being smart with your money, dude, that right there, even if we were to end this podcast right here, if people just took that to heart, they would just become not just better entrepreneurs or copywriters, but just better entrepreneurs in general.
Yeah, and you know what you're doing is dead on right, Carlos, because we have to create a way to make money while we sleep. Because we talk about being entrepreneurs and business owners, but you know what? I looked at my life, and most of the time over my career, what I've had is a glorified job. You know, now some days my boss is an asshole. Most days he's cool, but it's me, right? And so I had freedom. I've had a lot of freedom to do things that I wanted, but my income, my quality of life depends on my ability to trade hours for dollars. I have to put out the effort on a continual basis to bring in the ducats. Now, yes, there have been times in my career where I've had, I was selling things and I had money coming in automatically. I was joint venturing with people and that was going great. But those things dry up. They, sometimes they happen. Things happen and they end. And that's happened a number of times in my career. One of the things that I'm focused on now is, like I told you earlier about the Copy Avengers, is I'm trying to create something that will outwork me, where And I've got my own courses and teaching and things like that I want to bring to the market, and other products that are not related to copywriting, because I need to build passive income. I need to make money while I sleep. And so everyone should really be thinking about that too, because here's what happened to me. Not everybody has this kind of issue in their life, but I've spent the last 18 years really being a dad, raising kids, because unfortunately my partner had major issues. And so I put all my focus into raising my kids. And so what I did was, I knew in the back of my head, like, you really got to get something up, that's making money so you don't have to. And I had little things here and there, but I never set aside dedicated time to work on creating my own cash machine, right? You have to do that. My suggestion is, even if you set aside 2 hours a week just to think, like, what can I do to make money while I sleep? How can I use the skills, the knowledge, the assets that I have, the resources that I have to make money while I sleep? Because otherwise all we have is a glorified job. That's really it.
That's true.
So, the fact that you guys have multiple streams of income, Robert Allen used to say that all the time, create multiple streams of income. And it sounded great. I agreed with it 100%. I just never spent the time to focus on getting it done.
Yeah. Well, a lot of it is totally time. I mean, Tiffany is actually kind of like the lifesaver of our business, because I don't know if it's a copywriting thing or what, but when it comes to organizing shit, when it comes to sit down and just I'm just not probably gonna do it unless I'm forced to do it. I would need a boss on my back to tell me what to do, and so she kind of serves as that. So it's perfect, right? So because I have the same issue. I mean, and I think a lot of copywriters do, because we get so worked up about writing for our clients, and we're trying to get, because as a freelancer, you're not just writing copy. You got to learn how to find clients. You got to learn how to close clients. You got to learn how to write copy. And most of the time, you don't even get feedback from your copy, so you probably don't even know if you're good or not. How are you going to get better if you don't get feedback, right?
Right.
And to put your own, you can make some money, which is cool. But even when you don't make that much money on it, like when I first started my I Love Jeet Kune Do page, which now it makes money, but when I first started, for the first like 6 months or more than that, like the first year, it didn't really make money. Like we broke even a little, we probably lost more than we made. But what it did is it showed some kind of result and showed that we were in the marketplace. And as copywriters, one of the things that I would always get asked was, dude, if you're so good, why don't you do this shit yourself? And he used to just bug the hell out of me, because I thought he was right, or they were right. And so that's when I started, showing people, well, yeah, actually, I've got this, martial art website, and I do this. It instantly gave me more credibility. They didn't even care about the results. My clients wanted to just know, all right, he is in the game trying this shit out. So he has a certain perspective of more of a product owner, a business owner, not just, a freelance gunslinger that's like, hey, give me a bunch of money and hopefully it works. Putting your own products together, it's great because you can build your own assets and your own products, but it actually makes closing the deal as a freelancer even easier.
Yeah.
So dude, what do you dropped a little bit about the Copy Avengers, and that's super exciting. I loved hearing about that. Can you talk a little bit about more about that?
Copy Avengers. Well, yeah, since I became Tony Stark, one of the things that I've done in the last few years is I have worked with mentoring a few copywriters. And there's been plenty of times in my career when I've had way too much work. And I don't like, turning good work away. So, and I know there's plenty of writers out there that don't have enough. So I'm like, how the hell can I figure this out? And it shouldn't have been such a complicated thing for me, but I was like, okay, copy Cubs. So I started working with, Cubs a few years ago, but then I got this idea in October. I think the whole Tony Stark thing just clicked, like Avengers theme. This is fun. Superheroes. Wow, And so what I decided to do was to create an agency, and the whole focus is each one of the writers is a superhero in their own right when it comes to a specialty. So like I'm looking for writers that have a strength in maybe a particular thing, whether it's VSLs or, Facebook ads or long form copy or a particular niche. Each one is a superhero at something. But together, it's just like the real Marvel Avengers. You got Iron Man, you got Thor, you got the freaking Hulk, and each one of them, on their own kicks ass. But man, when they've got a really big enemy, they come together as a team and they really get stuff done. So the reason that I decided, or I came up with the idea for the Copy Avengers was, it was just about having fun, because and also one of the things, I don't know if you've experienced this yet, Carlos, but for me, because I spent so much time being a dad, I took myself out of the seminar circuit, out of traveling, and I became isolated. And it's, we need to interact with other creative people to stay sharp, to get perspective, to avoid imposter syndrome, all that kind of stuff. And so I thought, this would just be fun. So I just started asking people, hey, what do you think of this idea? Doing the old marketing thing, you survey people to find out whether or not there's a market before you create the product. And everybody was like, holy shit, man, I'd love to be a part of that. I mean, literally, that was 100% of the response that I would get from people. Oh, I'd love to be a part of that. I'm so excited about that. That would be so cool. And I'm thinking, I'm onto something here. So that's what I'm doing. At the time of this recording of this interview, I have a certain number of copywriters that I've selected, they're in, and we're in the process of coming up with awesome superhero names for them, which, will just keep me out of legal hot water. And then I've got, I'm still accepting, applications from other potential writers. My vision for this is that we'll work on high-level projects. I've worked for some of the biggest names in the business. I've done multi-million-dollar launches with Dean Graziosi and David Bach, and a lot of people, the Jeff Walker style. There's some projects where there's a potential to make $2 million. You need to bring in a team, and it's going to cost you $25,000, $50,000, $100,000 to get all the work done. So as a team, you can hire the Copy Avengers, and you have a team of specialists working on your project. Each one, is responsible for a different piece. Or if you just need one of them, maybe you just need Hulk to come smash. Then Hulk can come smash. Maybe you need to have Tony Stark show up, and give you a scotch. Well, fine.
We can do that.
Yeah, we can do that. So, the kind of the approach that I'm taking here is whether you need a superhero or a whole team, depending on what your needs are, that's what the Copy Avengers are for. Plus, it's just fun. We're going to do some fun things too. Like, my plan is to get together at one of the upcoming industry events and actually have us take pictures in costume and stuff. So we'll see how that goes, but that's my vision. Just fun.
Dude, that would be fucking cool. Could you imagine if you were speaking, because you couldn't have all the Copy Avengers speaking, that'd just be madness, unless they were all speaking separately, and it turns out that 8 of the 10 speakers are all fucking Copy Avengers. That would be kind of cool. Dude, I love the whole idea of it, because very few people have even thought of that. I've heard some people dabble with the idea, but they never really put as much energy into it as much like what you're doing. You're really forming it the way it should be. So where can people learn more about that and learn more about you if they want to connect?
Well, right now, there's a one-page application site up at copyavengers.com. That eventually will be a client-facing site where we'll be directing, prospective clients. You can also go to Tony Stark Policci to find out a little bit about me. My website, which I started in the mid-90s, it sucks, to be honest with you. I haven't done jack to it for years. Copywritingtips.com. It used to be, my vision for it used to be this was going to be the clearinghouse for all things copy. If you want to learn how to write, you go to copywritingtips.com. I'd have all these tutorials and things there. It's just languished. So you can go visit the site, but don't expect to be impressed. And part of the reason for that is I've been blessed enough to where I have enough work coming in, but I'm so busy that I don't get around to working on those other things, and I'm not as passionate about that. 15 years ago, or 20 years ago, my vision was I'm gonna be another Gary Halbert. I want to be a famous copywriter, and that's going to be my legacy. It's not as important to me anymore. But those are 3 places you can find me.
I love it. I love it. So the first one, though, I think everybody should make sure they go check out is copyavengers.com. And then copywritingtips.com. It's just such a good domain name, dude. You got to do something with it. That's fucking amazing. Yeah. So anyway, copywritingtips.com and copyavengers.com. We got the man, Tony Stark Policci, on the line. If you guys need any copywriting help, make sure you hit him and his Copy Avengers. They'll take care of you. Dude, thank you so much for coming on.
Hey, thank you, Carlos. I really appreciate it. I love what you and Tiffany are doing, and I wish you guys nothing but success. And since we are in the same city, we ought to get together at some time and, you know, grab a beer or coffee or whatever.
Fuck yeah. I was going to ask you that off camera in case you turned me down. So this is even better. I was going to do it, you know, you don't want to get rejected publicly. It's fucking terrible.
That's
but
right.
Fuck yeah, I'll do it, dude. I'd love to.
Humiliating, yeah.
Awesome. So guys, make sure you check him out, copyavengers.com, and make sure you subscribe and listen to all the rest of the podcast interviews. Thanks so much, guys. See you in the next one.